purposes today, we're primarily going to be talking about paper and canvas, and most of the artwork that you'll see in the show today is shown in both those two forms, but there's a lot of other original work in the show today. The other purpose for framing artwork is decorative, something that can fit into your home. These two purposes are not mutually exclusive. You can be perfectly decorative and take care of all the artwork that you need to. So as we get into picture framing, the most important thing from the perspective of the picture framing unit is the frame. Frames come in a lot of different forms. As you look at purchasing or designing picture framing, something that you should take into mind or be aware of is that the picture frame is somewhere between 50 to 80% of the cost of what you're purchasing when you're doing custom framing. Today, what you'll find as you go through the show is that the artists have been very conscientious about the cost of the framing that they're supplying to you. In almost every case, what the artists today are doing is passing on the cost of framing to you at no additional cost. So the artists are taking advantage, they're passing on their discounts to you in almost every case, and it's a good opportunity for you to take advantage of that also. The other thing that artists today will be doing is not framing their pieces so that you have an opportunity to purchase their artwork unframed, and that allows you to do custom work on your own. Just a note about doing custom work. Make sure when you're doing your work in a frame shop that you take advantage of the designers on site. They're there to give you advice and guide you through on how to make that purchase. The other person, the other professional that's very helpful in making decisions about picture framing are interior designers. Many of you will work with interior designers on your homes or on your properties. Designers have a lot of knowledge about picture framing, and they can guide you through that process so you make an educated decision also. So back to the frame. We mentioned that it's the largest part of your purchase or the most expensive part of the frame unit. There are different purposes for the frame and different ways that we perceive of the frame on a project also. In design, what we think about the frame is we think about it as a piece of furniture. And it's helpful when you're designing your frame project to think of the frame as a piece of furniture. The other way that you'll see the frame considered today is a way to enhance the artwork. So that's the two biggest ways that we think of the frame on a frame unit, is to enhance the artwork and to coordinate with your decor. As we design the framed unit, remember, so if it's a piece of furniture, what we're trying to do is make your frame work with your space, and then you'll come in from there to the artwork, and then the artwork can be freer in your interior to be whatever you want it to be. Got a couple examples that we'll get into, and what we want to do as we wind out this demonstration is use some art that's from this show to show you some examples of the work in the show and different ways that the artists are framing their pieces. The next biggest sort of element to a picture frame are mats. Mats have multiple purpose in framing. The primary purpose of matting, much like the purpose of framing in general, is conservation, or a way to protect your artwork. The biggest purpose of the mat is to get artwork separated from glass. Mats are primarily used on paper pieces, and the idea is that you don't want your paper artwork to be pressed up against the glass. The mat provides a very small barrier that holds the glass off your artwork. The second biggest thing that the mat does is to create a neutral space around your artwork so that the art doesn't seem crowded by the frame. We'll show you some examples of that. In this very simple example, you can see how the frame is being separated from the artwork by a large amount of space. Over time, mat has different design purposes. Currently, mat design is fairly large. 5 or 10 years ago, this mat would be about 3 inches wide. Today, we design in mats that are 4 inches or larger, generally. In a juried show like our show today, you'll mostly see mats that are about 3 to 4 inches wide. and that provides a nice neutral space around the artwork so it doesn't appear crowded by the frame. There's other things you can do with mats to provide a decorative element. On its very simple level, we use a double mat like this, where you have a bottom mat and a top mat. This provides a break also between the mat and the artwork, and you'll see in our examples that I'm going to show you shortly from the show the way artists have used that. Mats also come in a lot of different finishes. Very attractive finish, and one of my favorites is a linen mat. These come in all different colors. It can also be fabrics from your other decor or things that coordinate with your space. This provides a very rich look. It's nicer on a higher quality piece of artwork. It also denotes that the piece is of some value and it was important enough to encase in a nice environment like a linen mat. Other fabrics are things like suede or leather or different fabrics. Silk is also commonly used on mat board. If you get a hole-in-one, you can frame your mat in AstroTurf, and some people will do things like that. So mats come in every different kind of finish, and they're really designed to enhance your artwork, again, to enhance your artwork in your decor. This is probably the most boring element of framing, and that's the mounting, but it's important for taking care of your artwork. I'm just going to show you a couple brief examples, and then we'll get into looking at some of the examples from the show. Most of the art that you see in the show today is going to be hinged by the artist. This is a way of preserving the artwork so that it could be completely liberated from the framing package for collectible purposes or the purposes of reframing any fine art. What we're trying to do with fine art is make sure that the artwork can at any time be liberated from the frame package, handled, shipped, evaluated, and reframed. So the idea is of a hinged piece is that it's very light effect on the artwork. This is what we call a T-hinge, and it allows the artwork to move in a way that's independent of the mat. A lot of times you may see art that a student may do or someone who might not know what they're doing, and they'll tape the entire piece of artwork to the mat board on the back. The reason that we don't like to do that in framing is that different papers and different elements change shape and size depending upon the environment and the temperature. And we'd like that artwork to be able to move as freely as possible as it expands and contracts within the frame package. And the hinge allows it to do that by simply hanging from the top. If this artwork were to ever be banged or jarred in any way, these hinges are also designed to be loose enough that the artwork would be able to liberate itself and just drop within the package without tearing or ripping. So the idea is that this artwork will simply hang here like this, and then it would be backed by some sort of acid-free backing, and it would appear like this. Some artwork, and today in the age of digital printing, a lot of people are buying photography on paper and different kinds of product. Dry mounting is another thing that we do with artwork. It's important that you understand when you're doing dry mounting, this is not a way to handle fine art paper except photography. You're gluing this down to the board. This is a temporary glue, can be reactivated by heat, and your photography can be liberated from the surface. But photography wants to be very flat and smooth, and so we like to mount it in a way that makes that surface very flat. Otherwise, it can display a rippled surface, and this is a way to handle artwork that you don't want to have have any wave to its surface. Sometimes the hinging that we just showed you can create points in the artwork, especially if it's heavy, that cause a wave, and that can bother some people as they view it. Mounting and backing is a really boring topic. Things go behind the artwork, they're designed to protect it. You saw the foam board that I was showing you here in these examples, and that is the primary substrate that almost all these artists will use behind their artwork. Suffice it to say, it's there to protect the artwork and to create an acid-free backing so that nothing from behind can damage the artwork, and that's most of what it's there for. We won't talk too much about that unless you have any questions. The other thing that we do to mount artwork that's not paper is canvas. Canvases are stretched, and I'll just show you one of the examples from the show. So canvas, this is a canvas material. It's stretched over a wood frame. That's the way the canvas is displayed and presented. It's not much more complicated than that. You're creating sort of a drum head with it. You can see from the back, if all these weren't in the way, that there's a wooden frame. Canvas is stretched around that and stapled. It's very tight, by the way. There's a special pair of pliers that you use to stretch this with. They create a really tight surface for this artwork. The problem with canvases, and the only thing you have to manage with it in your home and as you transport it, is you don't want to dent this surface. However, all that can be re-stretched out of it. It's another boring topic, but it has a lot to do with how you display your artwork, and that's glazing. Is the way that people who use glass talk about glass, by the way, to refer to multiple different glazing products. There are two primary products that we use to glaze artwork in picture framing. One is acrylic, and the other one is art. Acrylic looks just like glass, and I'm going to talk to you about a lot of different types of glass. Acrylic comes in all the same types that glass comes in. Acrylic has the singular positive feature of being mostly unbreakable. That's about the end of its positives. It also comes with a little bit of a UV filter in it naturally because of what it is. The negatives about acrylic are that it can be scratched, and there are also many cleaning products that cause this to ultimately break down. It's a petroleum product, and different petroleum products that are used for cleaning in the end cause this to be kind of smoky and not look very attractive. It's nice to do if you know someone has a basketball in their bedroom, but it doesn't have many other good uses beyond that, except for incredibly large artwork can be framed in acrylic also. It's also a little lightweight. The cool thing about modern glass, though, is that it comes with a lot of different features. I'm going to hold this up and move it around so you can sort of see the different ways that this glass has different clarity or non-clarity or a frosted effect on it. What you'll probably have noticed is that this glass looks way better than all the other glasses too. There's glass here, yeah. Pretty amazing, isn't it? This museum glass, and it's the modern anti-reflection glass that we use today. This is glass, just regular old glass that's clear. On its own, it has no UV filter with it. Glass today, however, has great coatings that are applied to it that do have ultraviolet filters. If anybody doesn't get that idea, the ultraviolet filter is there to prevent your artwork from fading over time. It's one of the biggest things that happens to art that's displayed under light is that it fades over time. So glass is kind of a big deal when you're framing. There used to be a product that we called non-glare glass, and a lot of us that are old remember that a lot of people like to use this product. I'm doing this to you again, by the way, so you can see how glass doesn't all appear the same. This is what we used to do to eliminate glare in glass. We don't do this anymore, and there are people that will ask for it, and you might be one of them, but you'd probably like to stop asking for this. It's a frosted glass, and the way that we reduced the glare a long time ago now was by frosting the finish of the glass, and it was supposed to reduce the glare. But what it kind of does is create a big frosted glare, and it detracts from the clarity of your artwork. It's also created by etching the glass with acid. Glass is a liquid. It absorbs some of that acid. So really what you've done is made an acidic glass that isn't good for anything and kind of just frosts the surface of your glass. Today what we use is coated glasses. These are coated with a very transparent film that provide two big effects. The first and most important effect is that film provides a UV filter. That UV filter can be up to 98%. No art is going to fade under a 98% filter, and your glass has, or your artwork has a much greater longevity if you do that. The big mouth, I want to make sure I show you these examples. The other big feature that this coated glass has, it's virtually invisible. There is a filter on it, and I don't know if any of you can see it. The one negative is, on occasion, you'll catch that filter that creates all these great effects of UV and invisibility is blue. And at some terrible angles, I'll get you a real steep angle, you will catch a blue filter over the entire artwork. That really isn't important unless you sit in one spot and view your artwork from a very obtuse angle all the time, which mostly you're not going to do. Did you want to ask me something?
So that museum glass is coated?
It has a coating on it. And it's non-scratchable. You can clean it with a regular glass cleaner. The nice thing is also, for purchasing this product, it comes in a range of 3 values. Museum glass is very expensive, and if the frame used to be the most expensive element, it will be the museum glass if you use it. But it also has another product that we call AR reflection free, and that has about an 80% filter and is also invisible. And then it also comes in just a UV product that doesn't provide any glare resistance, but it does completely reduce all of the UV. And that's actually very inexpensive. Dollars more than your regular glass would cost. So there's really no reason to not get the conservation product nowadays. It's very reasonable. I was surprised and impressed to see, as I talked to the artists about using their artwork for this show, or for this presentation, that every artist that I'll show you today as a sample in just a moment uses the AR product that is a UV and is sort of the invisible thing. Having said all that, I'm going to get into showing you some of the examples of the artwork that I found to be great examples of picture framing from the artists that we had today. The first artist is Bert Burney, and you can see her in booth 89. She paints on linen and canvas. She also paints on some board, does great artwork. She has very high quality. She does a lot of still lifes, and she frames her pieces.
Hi ladies, welcome to Autumn Square.
Very nicely. She doesn't spare a expense on her framing, by the way, as many of the other artists do here. So as you can see by this frame, it's very attractive, solid wood frame. It has a nice width that'll look great as a piece of furniture in your home. Here's something, when you're framing a canvas, you know, we talked about how mats separate the artwork from the frame so the frame doesn't appear to crowd the artwork. What Bert has done here that's very interesting is she has used a liner, this little bitty gold line in here, to create this barrier. Just this amount of gold between this frame, that's a second frame by the way, creates just enough of a break. Patty's saying something to me. Oh, this is the liner, but we'll talk about fillet too. This creates a break between the art and the frame. It's kind of surprising to see if you were to just put this frame right up against this artwork. It just appears very crowded. And I just want you to see that little gold line in here. And then remember, Bert is an example of a great way to frame a piece of artwork. She's spared no expense and done some very fine work here. And again, Bert's an example of someone that's passing on her savings in framing to you, so it's a great way to get a framed piece while you're here today. Those liners look like things like this. They can be wrapped in linen, they can be covered in gold, they can be a different color wood. Many different kinds of internal frames can be used that way. The other element that Patty was suggesting to me here was this fillet, and it can be used like a liner in a mat or a frame, and I'll show you examples of that with some of the artists' work in a moment. But it has this kind of effect on a mat. It's a very nice feature. These can be in wood or color also. One of the attractive elements about using a metallic fillet like this silver one is that metals used in framing, and why we've used gold and silver for hundreds of years, is that the metals attract light back to the artwork and reflect it in an attractive way that brings your eye to the point where you'd like it to focus. So a fillet or a liner that's metallic is also an attractive feature.
How do you spell it?
Fillet?
F-I-L-L-E-T.
F-I-L-E-T, like fillet, but we call it a filleted frame. This is an example of a canvas before to show you how people stretch. I want to show it to you today as an example of how to frame a gallery wrap canvas. A common thing in the market today, especially as we see digital printing of canvases, which made them much more available to people because you could have prints now on canvas, is that a lot of artists and stores will have gallery wrap canvases. So that's a canvas where the image is wrapped around the sides, and you'll see that today in a lot of the artists' booths. One of the nice features of that is it allows the artist to show their artwork in an attractive way that didn't have to include any framing costs. One of the bad things about it as it's used commonly in people's homes is that they forget to sometimes that you might want to finish that piece. This is a great example of an attractive way to finish a gallery wrap canvas. This is artist John Maurer, happens to be my name, and I'm not him. And he's in booth 83. John does original oil paintings on canvas, and his work is great. You can just take a look at it right over there. What he's done is that in this gallery wrap canvas is to use what's called a profile frame. These are profile frames. They don't look like your old normal frame. The idea is that these products have been created to take care of these gallery wraps. Your canvas now sits right in this cavity, and it just has this little strip around the outside. What John's done that makes this particularly more attractive is he's left this cavity here. It's just another design element. It has three-dimensionality. It's a place for shadow. It's another place to separate the artwork from the frame to deal with that issue that we talked about where it doesn't appear to be crowded. This is an example from an artist, Michael McKee. Michael paints in pastels generally, contemporary pieces. I wanted to show you this for a couple of reasons. One is that Michael's done a very nice job of framing this piece. This is a pastel piece, which, if you're not familiar with that, pastels in oil or chalk are a very it's a product made up of particulate matter. What happens when an artist creates a pastel, you can see that this has a chalky look to it. Those pieces of chalk, those tiny pieces of pastel, will forever be sort of falling off of this piece. And what Michael has done, which is very appropriate, is to create a cavity between his mat and his artwork, and that permanently provides a place to let that pastel material fall over the years so it doesn't end up being on your glass. Michael also uses an AR glass that has a UV filter in it to protect his artwork. And additionally, I wanted to show you that this is an example of a piece that has been framed to suit the artwork, although it's very attractive for anyone's home because these silver and gold frames always look good in people's homes. He's made it a piece that he feels could go anywhere, and it enhances the artwork. As you can see, he's also used a second mat to sort of create a more attractive transition between the artwork and the wall. So as we discussed, the mat sort of is there as a neutral product to create a transition from the art to the frame and then off into your decor. This is a piece by Daniel Powers. He's in booth 66. Daniel is a photographer. Daniel also uses really cool framing products. And I can assure you he seriously spared no expense in the framing of this. This is an Italian hand-finished, water-gilded frame. I love this frame, it's great. As you can see, this is a great example of a piece that has been framed to enhance the artwork. This has not only a blue quality to it, it has a great patina of a hand-finished product. It reflects elements of the photograph that he has. This is a photograph of Preservation Hall in New Orleans. Daniel's also done a couple other neat things. Besides using a high-quality UV filtered glass, he's used a colored mat. This colored mat is also black leather, so it creates a rich piece that denotes value. It makes it a rich element to your home or decor. Daniel has also used a very nice filter. A very nice fillet. This fillet also reflects qualities of the artwork, and so as you can see, we move right from the art out to the frame, and in this case, everything is very consistent and all about enhancing this piece of artwork. you know, nice things always go well in people's homes, by the way. So you never have to worry that everything's not framed just for your. One more boring topic before I talk about another piece of artwork. And Bernie here does a really good example of this. So this is the back. It's not that exciting, but there's a couple neat elements that she does back here. People put paper on the back. Sometimes they use tape. You know, you need to understand that there's an actual purpose for this. If this had glass on the front of it, in this case it's a canvas, for whatever reason, bugs love to get in between the frame, and then they go and die right in between your glass. That's what happens. That's what this paper is there to prevent. Things going into this environment, living and dying there. So, as you can see, this is nice, it's very clean, it's all glued down, and it has a significant purpose, by the way. Another thing she's done is to attach a bio here. Your picture framer, when you do any custom framing, can also create a little bag or a pocket back here. It's a great place to put the provenance of your artwork. You can make copies there if you have valuable artwork. You can put receipts there, ways for you to remember where you got it, what is the value of it. Some pieces also get appraised occasionally, and it's a great place to keep those appraisals up to date. Finally, this piece has wire on it. And Bert does a real nice thing for her customers, and that's to provide hooks. And she's also real smart because she provides 2 hooks. What you want to do, in a very simple thing, and I won't get into art installation, but the nicest way to hang your artwork is on 2 hooks, just a little bit apart, and it helps to ensure that your piece is always going to be level and look good on the wall. This last piece is by John Costin, and he's in booth 66. I wanted to show you this as a couple examples. John does gorgeous bird prints. His approach is to sort of think of his elements as portraits. Yeah, so Carol's asking about using 2 hooks. I use a little cheater technique that could help everyone, and I use 5 inches. It's about that far apart. And then when you measure your wire on the back, you know that that's about 5 inches. 5 inches will do it. You don't, too often people are trying to put them all the way out here. It makes it very hard to hang. Or they put it, but yeah, just this is enough to create a point that's level. On a giant piece you might do 10 inches, but just some nice increment that's easy to manage. So this piece again is by John Costin, and he does these gorgeous bird pieces. What I want to point out to you about this is we talked about mounting, where we talked about hinging. This is a really cool way to display artwork for which there might be an attractive piece of paper. Everything about this piece is attractive, not only the artwork, but the fact that it's on a luxurious piece of cotton paper. These papers are rich, luxurious. They're made out of 100% cotton. We call it rag paper because it's cotton. But they have a really attractive element to them that people enjoy, and as you display your artwork, it's nice to see all those elements. So what John has done here is to what we call float mounting. And so in his display, he's floated it. That creates a couple challenges for the framer, the first of which is now how to get the glass off the artwork. So you use matting or spacing elements. In this case, he's used a great combination of a liner, which is a linen wrap product like this that we talked about, and then he's also used this gold fillet in here. So again, as I mentioned to you, how it brings your eye back in, it reflects light attractively, and it also creates a break between his framed unit and his frame again. And then this liner underneath the glass provides a great barrier between the glass and the artwork. And he's got a nice package inside there where his art is sort of permanently protected. So you've got a nice attractive display that has a real fun decorative element to it to see the whole piece of paper, but it also displays his artwork archivally. Anybody have any questions or things they want to talk more about? You came just in time to take a nice rest. If anybody doesn't have any more questions, I'll hang out for a couple minutes and you can touch base with me there. Enjoy the show.